My name is Dr. Jennifer Rollins, if you don't know me, and I'm the founder of Well Woman MD. I have today a lovely, wonderful physician here to talk to us about how to get it back in our skinny jeans, Dr. Melissa Choi. She is both board certified in family medicine and obesity medicine, both. And we are very excited to see her. This is perfect timing after the COVID diet hit us all for 2 months. So
Yes,
we need to talk about what to do next is to get ourselves back healthy while we still have some sunshine to get outside and do some exercise and feel better. So I just
absolutely.
wanted to sort of start off by having you tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yes. Well, thank you for having me, Jen. I'm excited to chat. So, I guess we can kind of start during my residency years when I was pregnant with my first daughter. So, as Jen had mentioned, I am a family physician, and I had always thought about caring for patients as a whole, taking a look at their whole family. But like many residents, whether you experienced it or can imagine, my schedule is very busy as a resident. So when I was pregnant, I really didn't watch my diet and I kind of gave myself an excuse like, life is busy. I'm pregnant. I'm just going to eat whatever I want, whenever I want, because I can. And I gained probably about 50 pounds during my pregnancy, which as an OBGYN, I know that's probably not the recommended amount of weight. So I had my baby the beginning of my third year, which is the last year of residency for a family medicine physician. And then breastfed my daughter at that time. And again, kind of gave myself a pass, like I'm nursing, I'm have a
Mm-hmm.
baby, I'm just going to keep eating. So I was not watching my diet at all. And then I actually got pregnant with our second daughter before our first daughter turned one. So I kind of had this very long period of time where I was pregnant, nursing, finished residency, got into my first year of practice, which I thought was going to be a lot easier than residency. And as many doctors know, your first year is almost like another year of residency when you're learning. And so I just was not feeling well. I continued to eat poorly and I was not a good example to my patients and realized that I needed to change something about my health. So this was kind of going on personally. And at the same time, I was looking at things from my patient's standpoint. And as a primary care doctor, I take care of patients from all walks, whether kids, whether elderly, but you think about all the problems like diabetes, heart disease, arthritis, sleep apnea, any type of problem, a lot of those came back to one issue. And obesity often is the cause of all those primary problems that I was taking care of as a physician. And so I started to think, instead of just trying to treat the diabetes or treat the sleep apnea, let's look at what the cause is and how do we treat obesity. And so I started looking into that and how to really care for patients and try to help them with weight loss. And that's where I kind of went through a journey of studying and becoming board certified, and also into kind of my own personal journey of how do I change my health. And so while I was studying, I was also starting to take care of my health at the same time.
Yeah, I think most of us that are doing things a little bit outside the box in medicine kind of start with our own personal journey of I had a problem with, or I have a problem with Hashimoto's thyroiditis, and that kind of led me down some alternative pathways, which is why I'm doing this now. And I think a lot of people who are doing things like that really start with their own personal journey. And I think that's powerful. That's how you learn because you're driven by yourself
Exactly.
to get the
And
answers.
then absolutely. And then I realized, if I can do this, I can help my patients and they're able to learn from some of the mistakes I've done and things that I wasn't able to do when I was in residency and kind of the first few years of being a mom and sort of changing and finding healthy habits and say, yes, even though life is busy and there's lots of things going on, there are things that we can change to become healthier.
So do you think, since you mentioned that and that's something that you struggle with, do you think that's like the most common thing you hear in clinic or in, when you see your patients, is that people say, I'm just too busy. It's too much. I can't.
Ye-
I got 3 kids. You have 3 kids. I have 4 kids. Like,
Yes.
heck do you want me to do that? And, balance my work and balance life when I have too much on my plate with having to figure out how to get food on the table. So what do you think that are sort of the challenges that people have with trying to figure out how to lose weight?
Yeah, I think at least when I'm talking to moms, because as a family physician, I see a lot of moms, I see kids. So that's who's coming in to talk with me. And so they feel like they're trying to balance everything. And then now during COVID-19, that kind of added more to our plates, right? Now instead of just working, we're also homeschooling, we're doing all this other thing. And so a lot of times patients will tell me, I don't have time, show me. And this is kind of what I enjoy to do, because I realize that no, if we actually look in our day and I say, let's take little chunks at a time. And that's what I realized. I mean, how often am I on my phone and scrolling through social media and there's 10 minutes right there? And so I say, that could have been 10 minutes where I could have exercised. Patients say, and I used to say, I don't have 30 minutes to exercise in a day. How am I possibly going to fit in 30 minutes of exercise? And I say, yeah, it's probably hard to find 30 minutes of solid time, but it's really easy to find 10 minutes here, 10 minutes there, 10 minutes there, and you can kind of add things up. So that's one example of how I've learned to find time in my schedule and how I talk to my patients about finding time in their schedule for exercise.
Yeah, I actually wrote a little post about sort of creative ways to exercise, because sometimes it's something simple like just parking super far from the grocery store and having to walk into the grocery store and having to take all your groceries back. Like, you kind of say those words to yourself,
Absolutely.
walk down the grocery store, but
Yes,
you got to
yes,
put something in. Or if you have a toddler, like, man, they can really like get your biceps going, like lifting those guys up,
exactly.
laying on the floor. Like, you can get some serious bicep work from lifting your
Yes,
toddler up, and they can great.
exactly. Yes, yes. I say playing with my kids. That's another way, especially if you're a mom, another way to kind of get in physical activity. And that's what I try to do. I will go on bike rides with my daughters so that we can, get
Mhm.
more exercise. And I'm spending time with my kids at the same time.
Yeah, I
Yes.
mean, like,
Mhm.
climbing stairs at work is an option. I even spoke one
Yes.
time to a truck driver who told me she has crazy hours. And I was talking to her about it, and she said she has to sit for an hour at stops, like to wait for other people. And I said, well, why don't you just walk in place for 30 minutes?
Yes.
Put a
Yes.
podcast on or a show or whatever and just start walking. And she was like, oh, well, I guess I could do that. I'm like, well, you have these little, sometimes you just have to look for those little tiny spaces where you can just fit things in that are just, you don't need a gym membership. You don't need anything fancy. You can just kind of fit it small little pieces in here and there.
Exactly. And I think the same thing with COVID too, without a gym membership, I say, well, what are things that we have at home? And I look in my kids, toy box out in the garage. Do they have a jump rope? Do they have a hula hoop? And even simple things like that, that we can do at home. And you can even do it in your house if it's too hot or too cold or there's fires going on out west, trying to come up with other things right now. And finding things that you have in the house already to be able to continue to get in your physical activity. But I mean, I think physical activity certainly is just one
Mhm.
component of weight loss. A lot of times when we think of weight loss, there, just like children, there's not one thing that I can do to allow everyone. I say that there is a toolbox that we have for weight loss. And just like sometimes we need a hammer, sometimes you need a wrench, depending on what you're building. It's the same thing with weight loss. We have a toolbox. There's different types of diets. There's different things that we need to focus on. But when I think of weight loss, I kind of think of four main things. And, people usually jump to nutrition and diet and exercise, but I actually add on two other things. And I would say that the most important thing I feel like, or the foundation for weight loss, is actually patients or mental health and just how you're doing from that standpoint. And I always start and look at that, because if you don't feel that your mental health as well. There can be a lot of emotional components that come into behaviors and eating. And even from a stress standpoint, we now know that if we're in a sustained level of stress, that can actually activate certain hormones such as cortisol, for example. And a little bit is good because that can get us out of situations that are dangerous. But if we're sustained, if we're in a sustained level of stress, that can keep high levels of cortisol, which can actually, increase levels of glucose, which can make it more difficult for us to lose weight. So when I talk with patients, I say, how are you doing mentally? How is your mood? And if that's not managed, we can talk all day about diet and exercise, but that foundation is not there. And so let's build that foundation, and let's have a good foundation before we move on to the other kind of behavior changes that people commonly think about when they are thinking about weight loss. So I do think mental health is the third piece. And the fourth piece, in addition to exercise and diet, is sleep. And again, before I studied all of this, I did not think a lot about sleep or even know how sleep affected my weight. And, thinking back about residency life or new moms, why is it so difficult for us to lose weight when you're a new mom? You are not getting good quality sleep. You're waking up every 2 to 3 hours feeding. And even when your child's 1 or 2, you still may be waking up at night. And so it's difficult when we're not getting good quality sleep, because that actually affects a couple other hormones in play. Ghrelin, for example, is a hormone that kind of drives our hunger, and that actually goes up when we're not getting enough sleep. And then there's another hormone, leptin, that helps signal when we're full, and that goes down when we don't get enough sleep. So the quality of your sleep is really affecting how your body's responding to a lot of those changes. And so I tell new moms, you're in this state, and let's help you get more sleep, whether that's having a partner or having somebody help feed overnight. But if we're not getting good quality sleep for whatever reason, whether it's residency or being a new mom, that just makes it more difficult. And so that's another kind of layer of that foundation that we should pay attention to when we're thinking about weight loss.
Well, even people who have kids who sleep through the night, like mine are in the sort of middle ages, but sleep, you can't lose weight. If you think about what you do when you stay up too late and you don't get enough sleep, you tend to sort of go, oh, I'll have the donut for breakfast. Oh,
exactly.
Behavior changes. I know mine does. I tend to sort of, post call, I'm like, oh, I don't need to go to the gym. I could eat these chips for breakfast at the hospital. Like you don't make the choices, and whether or not I always thought it was just my own willpower, but certainly that makes more sense. It's probably hormone driven that says, I am trying to reward myself because I'm exhausted.
Yes. So yes, I had that a lot.
Yeah.
So just kind of that reward behavior. Yes. Yes.
Yeah. Even if your kids are sleeping through the night, and I always talk a lot to patients too about sleep hygiene or sleep routine, because just to say you go to sleep at night, it has to be like going to bed at the same time, waking up at the same time, like having a very normal pattern to your sleep. Because if you're staying up till 2 one night and going to bed at midnight the other night, it's not really a good sleep routine, and you don't ever really do well from those cortisol levels are all over the place because you're just not actually having a pattern to anything.
Exactly. And I think a lot of times that late night snacking can come into play too. If I'm staying up late to watch Netflix or to surf the internet, that's when, the munch is going to come in. You're getting hungry. And a lot of times I'll tell my patients, well, what time is it when you're wanting that snack? Maybe that's just a signal for us that we should be going to sleep. Because there have actually been studies too that whether you're eating the same number of calories, if we're eating it during normal awake hours versus say you're eating it between noon and midnight or 1 a.m., our bodies actually have a much harder time processing those calories if we're eating them late at night versus normal daytime hours. So, we'll think, oh, well, I'm eating the right number of calories, so I should be losing weight. But if you're eating those calories really late at night or overnight, and I know sometimes it's hard if you're on call or working nights, but trying to shift when you're eating closer to a normal daytime routine will also help with weight loss in general.
So what time should people stop eating, you think, before? If say you go to bed at 10, what time should you stop eating?
Yeah. Usually I say, what time is your dinner time? If dinner is around 6 or 7, I personally think that once you're done with dinner, you should be done eating for the night. Um, and if you're feeling hungry later after dinner, there's a couple things. Either you're staying up too late, you're staying up beyond what your body's telling you to go to sleep, or perhaps you're actually not eating enough protein during dinner to keep you full. So I look at the quality of the food that you're eating and then also the timing of how late you're staying up. And so usually after dinner, if you can stop that, that will help also with the weight loss.
What about alcohol, wine? Do we got to cut the wine off too?
So I never say, just like for any food, I don't say you have to cut anything out. There's no food that's off limits. And I kind of relate it like finances. You can buy anything, you just can't buy everything. And I think with your food choices, I don't like to restrict, and I don't say that you can't do this. And I think alcohol, in the same sense, if you're trying to lose weight, you want to look at the carbohydrates, and so beer, for example, has more carbohydrates than some of the hard liquor. But at the same time, in general, if you really are trying to lose weight, the body has an easier time if you're not drinking alcohol. And so some is okay, like I say, and red wine, is that healthier from a heart standpoint? And there's other health benefits versus weight loss. I think, for diet, there's things that are healthy for health and things that are helpful for weight loss. But I wouldn't say that it's off limits. It's, again, the quantity that you're wanting to have.
Yeah. And I try to tell people too, to just, definitely 2 hours before you go to bed should be nothing. You should cut it off, because you don't want to spend all that time, your stomach trying to digest all this food, like eat a bunch of food and then just go straight to bed. That's the worst thing you can do for weight loss. So you gotta, all those calories did nothing for you. Nutrients did nothing for you. They just went to places that we don't like them to go to.
Exactly.
So theoretically, I have a friend who's in her 40s who has 4 children. Are there any particular diets? So what there's some things I sort of tell people, but what do you think is sort of more of a diet that people should do, like say in their 40s versus when they're in their 30s? Do you think there's a difference, or should everybody sort of follow the same, routine essentially, but a different blueprint depending on who you are?
I think there are some general principles that everybody can follow, but I do also think that especially as women, as we age and kind of get into the menopause stage, I do find that a diet that is a little bit lower in, say, things that are pro-inflammatory can actually help with weight loss. And what is pro-inflammatory, or what sort of foods. And if you're in your 30s, I think that this is still a generally healthy diet. So I'm not saying that this is a different diet for somebody that's younger versus somebody that's older, but certainly trying to eliminate any added sugars or any refined carbohydrates, whether you're young or old. Those are things that, our bodies, it goes right through our bodies very quickly. It does not take a lot of energy for our bodies to digest that stuff. And then you're going to feel hungry much quicker than if you're eating something that's more, that's keeping you full longer. And so avoiding those types of foods. And then I also say, things in general that are whole, things that your great 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 grandparents would have eaten, things that we try to think about tend to be healthier. And then, a lot of times patients will say, well, what about meat? I hear a lot about plant-based diet. What are your thoughts about that? And again, I think back to the toolbox in terms of what we're trying to accomplish. Each patient is a little bit different. And if we do want to eat meat, and our family eats meat and I eat meat, again, we kind of want to think about, well, if I'm trying to avoid some of those processed foods, refined carbohydrates, we have to think about what are the animals that I'm eating? What are they eating? Are they eating corn-fed diets? Because that can play a role in terms of weight loss as well, too, because if their intake is not a healthy diet and we're basically eating that meat, then that makes it a lot harder for our bodies as well, too. So kind of looking at the source from that standpoint. And then, in general, I tell patients, if you are wanting to lose weight, watching your carbohydrate intake is kind of the basic backbone of where one can start. Again, things can deviate depending on age and where you are. And certainly if there's more heart disease, we would kind of want to watch the cholesterol, things like that. But in general, I start out with limiting the carbohydrates because that is going to cause our glucose levels to spike, which can cause our insulin levels to stay elevated, which makes it very difficult to lose weight if we're constantly eating those carbohydrates. So I would say for the majority of patients, really watching your carbohydrate intake is going to help with weight loss.
So would you say, when you say watching, do you mean like a medium range, not keto range? You're talking about like
Correct.
50 to 80 kind of grams of carbs a day as opposed to crazy keto below 20?
Yeah. Yes. So for people that don't know, keto diets in general will say 25 grams of carbohydrates or less. And I don't like going extreme because I want things to be a lifestyle change for you, not a diet. And so keto is not sustainable and it's probably not healthy if we're actually going to eat like that long term. So usually I will start with 75 to 125 grams of carbohydrates. And I will have patients track. I think journaling is a really good tool for patients too, if you're trying to lose weight, to write down what you're eating and drinking, or using apps. There's various apps that you can download on your phone because it's helpful to really see what you're eating and keeping track of the carbohydrates from that standpoint. So usually I aim for 75 to 125 grams. And the important thing also is watching one's protein intake. You want to make sure that you're having enough protein as well too, just to get the nutrients that we need, and then also to help keep you feeling full longer.
Do you the app names so that people can?
Yes. So two of the apps that I like to use are the Lose It app or MyFitnessPal, and both of them have free versions and a paid version. And if you can, the paid version is probably $3 a month, so it's minimal, but I like the paid version because it actually tracks the macronutrients. And then also they have a lot of restaurants in there too. So if you are going out to eat, you can just plug in the meal that you're eating from a restaurant and it tracks the carbohydrates, the protein, and the fats.
What do you mean by macronutrients? Just because you said that word so that people know what
Yes. Macronutrients meaning the carbohydrates, the proteins, and the fats. And so since we're tracking carbohydrates, if we're wanting to lose weight, we want to keep track of that and make sure we're staying close to that 75 to 125 grams. And I think that's a good place for patients that are trying to lose weight. And then once, if you get to a point where you're trying to maintain your weight, you can go up a little bit more. But that's a good place to start.
Yeah, and some of the stuff that I've read about it definitely not low, but medium range carbs is hugely important when you're over 40 because your hormones are not helping you in your 40s. So
Right.
trying to, keto never, to me, is never sustainable because people lose a lot of weight. And then as soon as they kind of revert back to what they were doing, they gain more on top of what they lost. And so
Yes.
I think that just like you, I always try to talk to people about sustainable progress and just a lifestyle change. If you change little small things and you just sort of gradually
Yes.
lose weight, it's going to go much better than just losing 50 pounds and then, the holidays come around and all the carbs from Thanksgiving come around.
Exactly.
It's super hard to do it. So it's got to be
It
like
is.
small changes.
Yeah, I think of our bodies almost kind of like a thermostat, and you kind of have to do it at small incremental changes because our bodies are pretty smart. When we lose weight very quickly or too quickly, our bodies know that, and it kind of wants to, well, say, well, this is where we were before, so I'm going to do everything in my power to get you back to where I was. And so that's why a lot of times those diets where you lose a lot of weight very quickly, people are not successful because our bodies work at almost like a thermostat, and it's just going to go right back to where you were or even more, like you had mentioned. Whereas when we're making those lifestyle changes and we're gradually losing weight, it's almost resetting the thermostat so we can get back down to a lower weight and keep it there. And you'll find more success to have that sustained weight loss versus, something that's really quick, because your body is just going to want to bounce back like a thermostat.
And I think people also, it really works against their behavioral changes too. Because I noticed that when I talk to people and myself, like if you are doing really well, then suddenly, you go to Thanksgiving, you eat all the carbs, you kind of start messing up. You almost feel like, well, I already had that for lunch, so I should probably eat
Yes.
dinner because I already messed up for today. And it's kind of like, like hurting you to do it that way because you just basically are talking yourself into it'll be fine because I ruined today. Let's just go ahead and have a bad day and I'll go to McDonald's and then we'll
Right.
move on. And so it kind of really hurts you your behavioral mindset to try to change what you're doing if you so extreme it's difficult to follow to begin with.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's again why I try to say, there's never things that are off limits. And when holidays come around and even special occasions, I say, yes, we need to be celebrating and doing those things and enjoying those foods mindfully, but also it's a holiday. It's not holidays, when December rolls around, there's all the holiday parties. And so to be mindful of that, everything, not I don't like using the word moderation necessarily, but just watching what you're doing and being able to celebrate, but at the same time, not going overboard or feeling like, well, I fell off the wagon, let's just stay here and then go on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the holiday season tends to be a big obstacle for people because it's very easily goes from Thanksgiving to Christmas. And so people kind of have a hard time sustaining. If you didn't make it part of your life, like just to say, okay, I get a dessert twice a week and it's already built in and this is my dessert day, then it's going to be easier to sort of get through those times that are harder when you're amongst, your holiday parties or your family, as opposed to just, I can't have anything good.
Exactly.
You miss out on trying. No one
Yes.
wants to eat just turkey with nothing else sitting on
their right. That's not fun.
No, your grandmother won't handle it. My grandmother would never handle it. She would be like, have the whole turkey. She's Italian.
Exactly. And I think, yeah, exactly. From a Chinese background, it's the same thing. Food is important, and I think there are cultural things as well too. I'm sure with your background and with many backgrounds, food is a way that we spend time. That's a way that we can show love to people. But at the same time, there's that balance of saying, yes, we want to have this time with our family, we want to be able to celebrate these things. But it's a one-time thing, it's a one-day thing. And then we can continue to eat the way that we have been after that.
So one other question about sort of diet, because I was just thinking this when you were talking. Are you a fan of intermittent fasting? What is your sort of take on that?
I have found, so I don't say it's for every patient, but I have found it quite to be a successful tool for many. And again, I was alluding a little bit to it in terms of hormones, because we think about just kind of the glucose that comes into our body when we're eating and the insulin that kind of comes after to respond to the glucose after we've eaten. And I have found that patients do have success when they're doing intermittent fasting on a day-to-day basis. There's kind of different ways to do intermittent fasting. One way is, you eat for 8 hours in the day and then you're fasting for 16 hours the rest of the time throughout the day. So commonly patients will eat between 10 a.m. and 6 p.m. And there are other ways where patients will intermittently fast. Say they eat breakfast, lunch, dinner, and then they actually don't eat anything the whole next day until dinner again. I don't have patients do that as often, mostly because it's difficult to do that. Even if you're only doing it a couple of times a week, I say, what's something that patients can sustain, for several weeks' time. And I do find that it's easier for patients to eat between that 10 a.m. and 6 p.m. range. And the reason why I think it's helpful is because, again, we're talking about periods of time where our body does not have high levels of insulin. As a physician, if you've seen patients with type 2 diabetes, and if they can't control their hemoglobin A1C and they need insulin, more often than not, we see that they gain weight, right, when they're given insulin. And so I think from a similar standpoint with our own body, if we're eating for long periods of time, we're going to have high sustained levels of insulin, and that makes it harder to lose weight. So if we can condense that timing of when we're eating, that can actually help, because your body's having 16 hours where you're not getting any food, and it's actually easier for our bodies to lose weight. And so like I said, it's a tool in the toolbox for weight loss. And I do think that patients find success with it because it's also sustainable. They can do it for several weeks. And then once you feel like you've met your goal in terms of weight, you don't need to go crazy. You're just kind of opening up that window in terms of timing of eating. So it's not a significant change again. So it's not drastic like a keto diet again, because it's not that drastic of a change. Your body doesn't respond and go the other direction once you're sort of off that intermittent fasting diet.
Would they do that once a week, or what do you think? What do you usually tell people as sort of starting it? What is a good approach?
Yeah, I say that's our goal. Our goal is to get to the 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. If they're eating in a 10-hour window, that's fine too. But again, like we were talking about with the late night eating, if you can avoid that, even if you're eating until 7 or 8, or say you get home late, that's fine too. It's just avoiding that really late night eating around 11, 12, 1, because that's when it's difficult for our bodies to lose that weight, because you're going right to sleep. Your hormones aren't working the way that it wants to in terms of burning calories. So if they can start out to try to condense it, to a 10-hour window, and then gradually condense it to an 8-hour window, and that's the goal. And if they can continue that daily, that will help with weight loss.
Perfect.
Yeah. Well, have you had patients do it, or have you talked to patients about it?
And I when I was sort of starting, I gained weight after having kids, and I trying to figure out different options. And for me, intermittent fasting seemed to kind of jumpstart some things. Everything else, I'm gluten-free and dairy-free, so I'm pretty strict on my diet, but I couldn't lose any weight in my 40s. And so it seemed to help for me. And I know sometimes when people have some crazy schedules, that sometimes that's like an easier, it can sometimes helps you with getting rid of temptation. Like if you're a little bit crazy, like you're up till, you don't start work till midnight or whatever. Like sometimes you can kind of use these as ways to sort of say, okay, well, I'm just going to eat during this time frame, as opposed to eating right before I go to bed, or doing, trying to give them almost like a framework of what they can try first, as opposed to, just guessing what they can do. I have had to, I just was
Yeah.
curious if you had any opinion on intermittent fastings. I know it's sort of one of those
Yes.
things that some people like and some people don't. And there is some good data looking at women in their 40s and sort of being just like the low carb, mid carb range, but helping
Hmm.
with weight loss. So I was just curious what your take was
Absolutely.
on it.
No, I agree. I mean, I think it is a good way to, what you said, jumpstart one's
Mhm.
diet for weight loss. And I do think it's not too difficult of a lifestyle change. Again, it's gradual. I don't expect patients to do a quick 8 hour
Mhm.
change right away, but it's something that can be a goal to be worked toward.
Yeah, and I tell people too, this weight loss is all about grace. Like you have to have grace with yourself. Like if you said you have to be
Exactly.
past 8 and it's 8:10, it's okay. Like it's fine. Like just
Exactly.
like you
It's
do with
not a
your
perfect
kids,
thing.
right? With your
Yes.
kids, you're always like,
Yes.
I know we said, bedtime by 6 o'clock, but like, like you just we're still barely getting our underwear and pajamas on at 6. Like we just have
Yes.
to have grace with ourselves and know that these are all small changes make big differences. And so you have to just not, you know, be too hard on yourself when you're trying different options to see what works for
Yes.
you.
Yes, absolutely 100%. And to not lose hope and just be like, "Oh, well, I just blew it today. So forget it," and to remember like it's okay. That's the end of today. Tomorrow is a new day and we can start back again because I think a lot of times it's patients feeling like, "Oh, I blew it, so let's just be done with it." But no, it's a lifestyle thing, like we've been talking about this whole time. And let's continue to gradually make these changes so they're sustainable long term.
Yeah, and if you blew it in breakfast, lunch is next. Let's try, like just get back
Exactly.
on it and see what happens from that standpoint. And I know that you do meal plans, right? That's something that you're helping
Yes.
patients with is trying to figure out how to balance, 3 kids and a crazy work schedule and life and COVID and all the other lovely things that are coming down 2020 this
Yes.
year.
Yes.
So, and I'll put in the comments when we're done the link so that you can actually get her meal plan, and it's a wonderful option for you to sign up, and she can help you figure out meal plans. But if I was so sort of segued into that, if I was going to go to the grocery store with you, if you were going to take me with you and tell me like, Jen, this is what you got to do. Like, what are the staples I need to
Yes.
know, or what do I need to? Because sometimes just going into the grocery store and looking at the produce aisle is intimidating. Like,
It
what do you
is.
deal with kids? Like, how do you figure out how to sneak stuff in, or figure out what you can do to basically make it work with kids and how to eat healthy?
Yes. Well, I think there's a couple of questions in there, right? First of all, what do we want to buy? And, I always start with, because a lot of times patients, if they're first coming in and they don't eat a lot of vegetables, for example, I start with, well, what do you like? And let's start there, and then I like variety. So I get bored if I'm eating the same thing all the time. And so when I don't have time too, I often will buy some vegetables that are already cut up, you know, organic broccoli that's already cut up, for example, cauliflower. So that will save me some time. Carrot sticks, and I buy things that are kind of already pre-washed, mini peppers, things that I can just grab and go. And those are great ideas for lunch and snack. But I think the cut up things are helpful for a dinner meal plan as well too. So it saves time with the chopping from that standpoint. And then, you know, meat, we kind of talked about that. And our family eats meat, but we never are like, oh, we're going to buy 4 steaks for 4 people. We actually eat a small amount of portion. So we will probably split 2 steaks amongst the 5 of us and load up on a lot of vegetables, for example. And so I tell patients, and people hear it all the time, it's eat the rainbow. So pick a variety of different colored vegetables if you're not sure what to pick. And in terms of fruit has great nutrients, but if you're actually trying to lose weight, you want to watch your sugar intake when you're eating fruit. So I tell patients, try to limit it to 2 servings of fruit a day. Again, fruit's great because it has a lot of vitamins, but you don't want to add a lot of sugar if you're trying to lose weight. I think it's different if we're just trying to maintain where we are. And I like blueberries because I think they're one of the lower sugar fruits. And kids like that. So that's very easy to buy. And if you can't get it fresh, you can buy frozen fruit that doesn't have any added sugar. Make sure it doesn't have added sugar in there. And that can be helpful to throw into a smoothie, or even my kids will even eat frozen berries as a snack because it's almost like a popsicle to them. So that's kind of like the meat and the produce thing. And then there are kind of staples in my house too. So we eat animal products. So eggs are a great source of protein for us. And yogurt, we don't buy any yogurt that has sugar added to it. So we will eat plain Greek yogurt. And I actually don't mind the fat, and we will buy the full fat yogurt. Again, if somebody has other health concerns, heart concerns, and they're watching cholesterol, you might want to talk to your doctor about that. But the fat can actually help us feel full longer, and that's not going to make you fat, but just avoid any of those flavored or fruit flavored yogurts from that standpoint. And then, thinking about snacks, I want to think about things that I can bring to work, or if it's a busy time. So nuts are very popular in our household. We'll eat pistachios, walnuts, almonds, and I think other things are hummus, something that you can dip into for vegetables. And then a lot of times patients will ask me about cooking oils as well, too, because that can actually play a role in inflammation and plaque building. And so to keep it simple, we just buy 2 different types of oil. We buy the extra virgin olive oil, but we don't cook with that because it actually has a very low smoke point. So if you are cooking with olive oil, it can break down, oxidize, and cause kind of that pro-inflammatory state, which can be difficult for weight loss, but also have some poor health consequences, like adding plaque to arteries. So we will cook with avocado oil because it actually is pure and it has a higher smoke point. And so just to keep it simple, those are the 2 that we buy. There are other things like grapeseed oil. There are other healthy oils, but to keep it simple, those are the things we do. And we do nut butters too, like peanut butter and almond butter, but making sure you're looking at the sugar content and making sure there isn't added sugar. So, a lot of the common brands like Skippy and Jif, they are going to have a lot of sugar in them. And we buy types that are just, peanuts and salt, or just even ground up peanuts. But so that's kind of like the grocery aspect of it. And then there's the meal plan aspect, how do I do that? And so I will sit down once a week, or now during COVID, I only go every 2 weeks. So once every 2 weeks, and just write out a meal plan, because if I don't meal plan and I don't know what we're eating, I will end up in the drive-through at a fast food restaurant because we won't have any food to eat. And we try to do a variety. I try to mix up the types of protein that we're eating. So we'll have chicken one night, fish one night. So again, we're not eating the same thing every night. And then I think an important thing, especially for families, is to look at your schedule as you're meal planning. So even tonight, for example, I knew I was going to be on this call from 5 to 6 o'clock. So I made sure I had a meal that I could throw into the Instant Pot. So it wasn't something that I had to cook right after I got off this call, and it would be ready to go. And so really looking at your schedule as a family, if your kids have a soccer game at night, is there something that you can prep ahead of time? And then also looking for recipes that are sort of one pot meals. So I'm not washing a lot of dishes. I'm not having to cut up a lot of things, and things that incorporate meat and vegetables all in one dish to eat. Does that make sense? Or hopefully I answered your questions.
Is a game changer in my household.
Yes.
You forget to do, you just throw the frozen chicken in there. You're like, yes, we're having tacos. Like
I know. The frozen thing is key, because a lot of times I'll forget to defrost things. And so it's nice that with Instant Pot, you can just add a couple more minutes to it and have dinner ready by
Yeah.
then. So, and I think in terms of kids, you kind of briefly asked, how do you sneak in vegetables? And I think there's various philosophies. I can kind of talk about what we've done in our household, and what I tell, parents when they bring their kids in is that it does take kids several times of trying a food to see whether they like it. And we've never forced our kids to eat anything, but we've always said, you should at least try it and see what you like. And I don't actually like to hide vegetables in my kids' diets because I feel like they should know what they're eating. And over time, they've actually come to enjoy it. And so they can even pick out, like, oh, mommy, did you put in zucchini? Like, so they actually can figure out what vegetables I'm cooking with now. And so they've become accustomed to that. But I think just continually offering kids the same thing, and even if they didn't like it, I'll offer it again, not the same day, but the next time you're making that dish, just don't give up if they don't like one food, because it does take kids 7 or 8 tries for them to get acquainted to a taste or to a texture before they really understand it. And just like adults, we like routine and habit. So a lot of times kids will want to eat the same food. But if you're able to just constantly expose them to different types of food, that can help in their journey of trying to enjoy vegetables. And I think for my kids now that they're a little bit older too, letting them have some say in terms of what foods they're eating goes a long way as well too. I don't like being told what to do. And so when they're packing their lunches, I'll say, okay, we have these vegetables, we have peppers, carrots, and snap peas in the fridge. Go ahead and choose whichever one you want. So giving them that option to choose has gone a long way in our house as well.
Yeah, that goes well. My kids are age 8 to 13, and choosing is, yeah, it's much easier for me, much easier for them. Like, it's just better if they've figured it out by now what they like. And so I just say, the choices are carrots, spinach, like, here you go.
Yes, exactly. And I think that's our role as,
we did the same thing with my teenager. My teenager wants to eat all the time because he's a teenager. And so I told him now, like, if it's a vegetable, if it's between meals, like if it's a vegetable, you can have unlimited whatever you want. Like, you go for it, you go to town. And it's actually helped him be a lot less picky of an eater because he's hungry. So he's like, yes, okay, I'll have some celery peanut butter. I'll have some carrots. I'll have some, he's sort of much more open. He has tomatoes with a little olive oil on it. Like, he just kind of, he's like, yes, all right, well, I'm going to do whatever I got to do. She's not going to give me Oreos. So
I guess I'll have to eat the tomato.
I guess I'll have to eat it. And do it. We incorporate our, like, my 13-year-old cooks every Thursday night for the whole crew. So, and my 10-year-old cooks on Tuesday. So that's actually helped them also be better about vegetables because they're trying to learn how to use them. And then they're a little bit better about eating them now because they have to actually try to figure out what to do with them.
That's great. How do they cook them usually?
So my oldest likes to make fish. He's a big fan of making fish. So he'll do like fish and rice. And then a lot of times he'll do like sauteed, like peppers, or he likes to saute like spinach, or he's sort of like, that's kind of his thing to kind of put olive oil with all kinds of different stuff in it. And then my second one likes raw vegetables. He's not a big fan of cooks. So he usually has he always makes this like veggie plate with carrots and all these, raw vegetables. And so he's much more a fan of just sort of, he doesn't like cooked as much, but that's okay.
But he's still getting his vegetables in. Exactly. Yes. Yeah. Oh, and one more thing too, in terms of cooking vegetables, because you were talking about it. One thing we do a lot, and that's simple, is just roasting vegetables. So whether it's broccoli or Brussels sprouts or cauliflower, an easy thing if parents and patients are looking for is just to turn your oven on to 400 and put a little bit of avocado oil and salt and just mix it all up and just stick it in there for about 20 minutes. It's a really easy way to get vegetables in, and my kids love it. It's a little bit crunchy, so it changes the texture a little bit. and you're getting all the nutrients of vegetables, and it doesn't take too long either.
Yeah, and you're preserving the nutrients much more than, boiling them. Like you're
Exactly.
getting some of the good stuff still in it without having to lose too much of the good stuff that you need. So that's yeah, I like to,
Yeah.
especially winter time. It always makes me think of roasted
Yes.
vegetables.
Yes. I know.
Makes your house smell good too.
Exactly. Exactly.
Well, I know there's a way to look to see if questions, so I'll look in just a second. But I wanted to ask you, I think I mentioned you before, but first of all, this has been awesome and amazing. And we really, really appreciate everything that you're saying, because it's hard to sort of know where to start and what to do. And so it's good to sort of give an overview of what's going on. And you can definitely check out, I'll put her Instagram link on the comments so that you guys can go to her Instagram, and that's where you can find her and find out her two-week meal plan.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay. Yeah. But I wanted to ask, this is kind of an off question, but what is, just for fun, what is the coolest advice you've ever gotten?
So, I mean, I think I'm thinking about, being a parent, because when I became a parent, even though I was a physician, I was like, where was the handbook in medical school to becoming a mom and all of that? And just realized, and I felt like anything I was doing, I was like, is this going to create a bad habit or a bad pattern? And I had another mom just say, it's okay. Even if you create a bad habit or a bad pattern, you can always break that bad habit. So for example, I was rocking my daughter to sleep, and I was like, oh, this is just, she's not ever going to be able to sleep because I'm rocking her to sleep all the time. And it's like, you know what? It's okay if that's what is needing to go on right now. You can always break and change that habit. And I think that has been great advice for lots of things. And I think even when we're thinking about diet and weight loss, if you're just feeling like I'm just in this rut and I can't get through it, or even now during COVID, I think our lives have been turned upside down for many reasons. And we're feeling like we just need to do this to survive. And I think that's absolutely fine. And it's okay. And we need to know that you won't break yourself for doing that. For a short period of time or for a limited amount of time, and we can break those habits. And having people around you to support you is probably another really important thing. And just not to be discouraged when you're feeling like there is that one thing that you're feeling like you're doing wrong, or you're not sure if it's the right thing to do.
Yeah, I think it's important to find wonderful people like you that can help you in your weight loss journey and not give up, because there is somebody there that you just need to find, and they're available. You just need to reach out to try to figure out who you can work with that you're comfortable with, trying to tackle the obstacles that are keeping you from losing weight or maintaining weight, whatever your goal is for that particular thing. So don't give up. I tell patients that all the time. If it doesn't work, if me and you don't vibe, like find somebody who you vibe with. Like it's important that you get the help that you need. Don't give up.
Yes. And I think all that you're doing too, Jen, with Well Women MD, there's just such a need for that, and having kind of that holistic approach. Women definitely need what you're doing. So thanks for all that you're doing, and thanks for being out there for us.
Thank you. I'm going to look and see. I think I can flip over and see if there's any questions on here.
Sure.
So I'll do that, and then we can end. Does that sound good? Okay.
Yes.
Let me see if I see anything on here. Looks like pages. Nope, it doesn't say that. So I don't see them on the bottom, so I'll assume that they're not there on the questions, but that's okay. If I did, I can always answer them afterwards.
Absolutely. And please reach out to me.
Yeah. Do you have anything that you want to say before we end?
Thank you for having me on. And like I said, if anyone has questions, you can find me on Instagram at the Mom Plate, and feel free to reach out if you have any general questions.
All right. You have a good night. Thank you.
Thanks. You too. Bye.
Bye.